everybody, and welcome to another edition of our Brown Bears podcast. I'm your host, Scott Cordishi. Glad you could join us. The Brown Bears podcast is brought to you each week by Site Specific, a Rhode Island-based construction manager and general contractor. As a company, they value respect, trust, responsibility, humor, empathy, and excellence. And a reminder, you can hear the Brown Bears podcast each and every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, again, wherever you sample your podcast. And this week, it gives us just great pleasure to welcome to the podcast. She is the new Vice President for Athletics and Recreation at Brown University from the class of 92. Grace Calhoun, PhD, is with us. Grace, how are you?
I am fantastic, Scott, and honored to be on your podcast today.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and I know a lot of Brown Athletics fans, I'm sure, are looking forward to hearing from you as well. What I like to do, Grace, with a lot of our podcasts is almost start from the very beginning. So I'd love to ask you, where did you grow up, and how did you eventually wind up at Brown University?
So I grew up in a really tiny town in the Catskill Mountains in upstate New York. People often ask the name of the town, and I quickly tell them that unless you're lost on the backcountry roads, you would never make it to this little town. But born and raised in the same house, and the road to Brown was a bit of a winding one. I was actually a gymnast as my main sport growing up. Did that for a lot of years and at a relatively high level. I like to say that I had a huge growth spurt from my sophomore to my junior year, where I grew 6 inches. So if you can believe it or not, I was 4'10" heading into my senior year, ended up somewhere between 5'4", 5'5". But long story short, it was the end of my gymnastics career. I quickly went downhill from there. Picked up track late in high school, but very recreationally. And honestly, I was just looking for the best academic university, the place I felt most comfortable, the best fit for me. And I looked at many of the Ivy League institutions. I visited all of the campuses. I did stay with the student program to get a sense of what campus life would be like. And I fell in love with Brown from the first moment I was on campus. It just felt like this energized, dynamic environment, so positive. I immediately felt comfortable and like it was home for me. So it was just the draw to the amazing campus environment. I loved the engineering program and the fact I could be in a program that was as much theoretical as technical. So a lot of pieces just fit. And then I had the amazing good fortune to really walk on to the track and field team. But I suspect we'll get into that a little more in later questions. But it was love at first sight for sure.
You know, I've heard that story or a similar one from many of the student athletes and former student athletes that I've talked to. That first visit to Brown, they fell in love. So yes, I am going to ask you about your experience. Late 80s, early 90s, class of 92. Tell us what it was like as both an undergraduate and a member of the track and field program, your 4 years at Brown.
Yeah, it just, as with everything in life, you can't say that every moment was amazing. There are ups and downs, and that's all part of the process. But I absolutely loved my experience. I interacted with amazing people. I'm in this world-class atmosphere where you're just being challenged in your thoughts and opinions and beliefs and in every way. And it was just such a period of growth and transformation. Now, if you look at that time period, Brown was really a very popular school and continues to be, but it was always making those lists of popular places. And again, just such an energized environment and really competitive athletics in so many ways. When you look back at that period, late 80s into the 90s, early 2000s, some really, really competitive teams. And a lot of what I've been talking to Brown campus community members about is going forward, but because you can't live in the past. You need to move forward, and it's a very different time. I have teenagers, and they remind me on a daily basis. It's a very different time, but yet there were some wonderful things about the campus environment back then that I do really want to bring back. For instance, we've talked a lot about the fact that there was this fantastic culture of student athletes really supporting other student athletes. My best friends were student athletes, but on all different teams. And I spent so much time where I wasn't studying or practicing myself, going to sporting events of all types, and how much fun we had at football games and wrestling matches and hockey matches, lacrosse, tennis. It didn't matter. We showed up and supported one another. And that really led to this very comfortable, nurturing feeling that I think is so important. So there are some pieces of that I think we've gone a bit away from that I'd like to get back to, but yet at the same time, a lot of exciting plans for moving forward and how we best meet current students, where they are with their desires, because unlike, 30 years ago, our current students don't want to be passive bystanders or, stand around and watch anything for any length of time. They want to be actively engaged, and it's back on us to figure out how to do that.
So just out of curiosity, what events did you participate in track and field?
So remember, I was coming out of a gymnastics background. Mm-hmm. I got into the jumping, and particularly triple jump was a main event. I say very honestly, my college years were not my best competitively. I was much more competitive before college and after college, but it didn't detract from the fact that I felt like I had this amazing experience, and I was able to holistically develop in ways that really made me want to leave Brown and do something significant and have an impact. So those were incredibly formative years. And while certainly we want to have competitive programs and support everyone to their best possible competitive success, you will hear me speak routinely about my passion for holistic development through sport, and how all of these experiences are just so important to the development of our young people, and how we empower them to be on their best possible life's trajectory going forward to make a difference in whatever way they choose.
So you mentioned engineering. Class of 92, you graduated magna cum laude with a degree in electrical engineering. How did your career path take you into the world of athletic administration, dare I ask?
Yeah, so I was reunited with it in grad school. I continued to run. I did my grad school at the University of Florida and started out working with the track program there, and gradually doing academic support for football and some other programs. And it was the first time I was really exposed to the fact that college athletics could be a career path as well. And immediately just fell in love with it as a career path. My parents were both educators, and I think I've always had their love of education, but never really wanted to teach. But this was right away just eye-opening, and I said, this is exactly what I want to do, to take something that I love and to be able to use it as this vehicle to help develop other people. And now 30 years later, I feel like it's just been such a rewarding career path to just see all these amazing young men and women come in, and to see them from nervous freshmen starting out to graduating and big plans and everything that they've been able to do in their time. Again, it just brings me so much joy, and quite honestly, really energizes me. I feel like I get so much from them as well.
So fast forwarding to where we are today, you most recently served as Director of Athletics at the University of Pennsylvania. And I know from the game notes, the first time you refer to the University of Pennsylvania, it's as the University of Pennsylvania. After that, it's Penn, please. But you were there for 7 years as AD, won 27 Ivy League championships in various sports, as well as 3 national titles. Grace, what was the secret to the athletic success at Penn, in your opinion, while you were there?
Yeah, we built it as a community, and that's going to be the same secret to the success at Brown, that it was people coming together and understanding to have enhanced levels of success. We had to be willing to rethink some things, but we had to forge strong partnerships and collaborations with so many stakeholders across the campus and in the alumni community, corporate partners. That, it truly takes a community working together to help programs succeed to their full potential. And we really started rethinking quite a few things and trying to play into some of the things that Penn did best. What I like to talk about, unique value propositions, and what are the biggest the pulls to the university, the most prominent pieces that we can leverage to get better ourselves. And then it was a real reinvestment in coaches, all the supports and the experience around the varsity sport experience, a lot of fundraising. Honestly, a lot of it comes back to the resources that you can put into it, and facilities enhancements and all of that. But absolutely, it was the community working together towards shared goals and being able to, enjoy the process of seeing teams get better and better.
Sure. So, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because you and I have already spoken at length, and I've told people how progressive of a thinker you are. Like you alluded to this earlier, it's really doesn't help to look into the past. You can certainly learn lessons from the past, but it's where are we today and where are we going in the future? So I know exactly what you're talking about. So prior to Penn, you were the director of athletics at Loyola of Chicago, where you made many hires. And one of the more significant ones, I think, that a mainstream sports fan might know is men's basketball coach Porter Moser. You hired him in 2011, and he did an amazing job with that program, obviously. For instance, what did you see in him during the interview process, if you can recall back to 2011, that made you believe he could do a good job there?
Yeah, so I recall vividly. We don't forget things like this, right? But it was, once again, rethinking how Loyola needed to move forward. So in arriving there in 2011, they really hadn't seen any level of success since the 1980s. And we had to rethink our approach. And a big problem was in a sport like basketball that really needed to be a strong program for Loyola, they weren't successfully recruiting Chicago or Illinois. So bringing in a coach who had strong roots and could get the local recruits, thinking about visibility. We had a 2-year project to reposition conferences, knowing that we needed a different platform. And it was really looking at each piece. And I appreciate you saying that, whether I forget the exact words that you use, but I like to look at things, and this is where the engineering comes in. Every day, I really think of myself as a problem solver and a builder. I'm very analytical, and I'm not afraid to try out of the box solutions and to establish an atmosphere where that's not only accepted, but it's really embraced. And what comes with it is you have to be willing to fail. You're not going to move forward and have significant progress without having some failures, but failures also bring rich learning. And that's what we embrace in higher education, that we're all about about learning. And if we come into this with a growth mindset, we're focused on continuous improvement, we're going to have some great results. And where we fall down, we're going to be resilient. And everything we teach through sport, we're going to dust ourselves off and keep going. But, this real mindset of I'm going to come at it with a great attitude and energy, and we're going to commit to continuous improvement going forward.
So before your arrival back here at your alma mater, I followed you casually in your role as chair of the NCAA Division I Council. You've served in that role since 2019, and my goodness, what a period to serve in that role, Grace. I mean, the challenges that you have had to deal with, not just the pandemic, but transfer rules and the NIL rule changes. I mean, what have these past 2 years been like for you serving in that capacity?
Well, I often have told NCAA President Mark Emmert and many of the VPs that it was a bait and switch, because I got into that chair role and I could not have ever anticipated what we'd be managing through. I am almost at the end now of a 2-year term. So when I took over, I knew that name, image, and likeness was going to be a real key issue for the association. And I certainly knew that transfer issues and there were some other big places where the NCAA rules needed to be modernized. But, here 8 months into my tenure, the pandemic hits. And it's been so challenging on all of us, because we had to just spend week after week rethinking everything we were doing, from the ability to be as flexible as possible and give waivers wherever appropriate, to just finding solutions and healthy ways of moving forward. So it was heavier dialogue than I could have ever imagined. I went from really never using online platforms to having 5 or 6 platforms I had to get very comfortable in very quickly in managing these meetings. But the seeing the association manage through this together, and while solutions were often very different, and clearly in the Ivy League, our sense of what was comfortable to do with safety standards and campus challenges was different than where others ended up. But really this embrace that it's all about the students at the end of the day, and we're going to do as much as we can for the students. I really saw people come together and rally and show up with their best selves every day. We certainly were very disappointed in the Ivy League that we did not get to do as much. I will say I'm thrilled that Brown is back to competition and that we had many spring games this year, and we have a couple teams progressing to nationals, which is fantastic. We're going to come out of this strong. We expect to be back to full activity, working into the fall, because we're doing a lot this summer with special summer session that we have at Brown, but back into full activity in the fall and coming out of this as strong as possible. But the essence of your question is, it was really digging deep and knowing that our student athletes were relying on us to find solutions, a lot of times in very difficult places. And we had to work together as a very diverse Division I membership to get there. So really probably the toughest challenge I've had in my career to date, but one that had a lot of successes and just a lot of feeling of when you can do it together, when you all just kind of put differences aside and say, this is a reminder why we do what we do, that you manage through.
The greater good, right? For the greater
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Grace, for anybody that knows President Paxson, I think we all know how much she wants Brown athletics to be competitive at the highest level. I am 100% convinced of that. I truly am. And I think your hire, the title that you were given, the fact that you report directly to her, to me, are just great examples of that. Did you get that same sense going through the interview process?
Oh, absolutely. President Paxson is an extremely competitive person. She certainly wants to win, but she she understands better than perhaps anyone how it's not just winning for winning's sake. It's what it does to a campus community. We want to teach our young people these life skills and give them this mindset on life, that whatever the challenge is, that you're going to persevere and continue to work towards success. We want an energized campus community where excellence of all types is really embraced. And I've always thought that for these world-class universities where they have athletics programs that are down, it's just not representative of our overall excellence. And it's not that we don't have fantastic coaches and student athletes in the programs. In some places, we just need to do some minor tweaks to really get things going on the right track. In other places, we're going to have to rethink a lot, but we know if we work together, we can do this. And getting back to President Paxson and her commitment, I think she really understands right now that being able to look at all that we're doing and to critically evaluate where we need to make some changes and how we can create better experiences for our teams and student athletes going forward. That's exactly what we intend to do. And I love the fact that she's willing to, personally get involved to ensure that it's not just athletics and recreation, trying to do this, but there's clearly this broad-based support to do this as a full campus community.
You're so right about how winning does bring the whole campus community together. And I remember the 2019 Ivy League champion Brown women's soccer team. I mean, their games toward the end of the season and in the postseason were so well attended by not just all the student athletes, but the student body in general really showed up to lend their support. I remember men's lacrosse a few years back when we had a chance to host the lacrosse regionals and they made it to the Final Four at Brown Stadium. I mean, what an atmosphere, but it does, it just energizes the community when you win and when you have success. It's more just about it's what you said. It's more than winning for winning's sake. It's what it does, the byproduct of it.
It's these shared experiences and what we love about college sports, because we're cheering for something that we belong to, that we identify with, but we're doing it amongst this group of students, faculty, staff, alumni, community members who come together and have a shared experience. And those are really the things that stick with you years and years later. I can remember some of my favorite Brown moments. And in fact, I have joked so many times to our hockey coaches and alumni that, it's disappointing to me that the plexiglass is now a lot higher than it used to be, because we would fight for the front row seats so we could get in and hang over the plexiglass. Yeah. Skaters were going by but just so much of it, part of the experience. You could laugh together, you could cheer together, you felt a part of something, and that's so important in the I think in the college experience, that even if you're not a sports fan, being part of something bigger than yourself and having these shared experiences, I would argue, is very, very important for everyone to at least have a little taste of that as they go through.
Sure. You talked earlier about some of what you thought were the keys to success while you were at Penn. And I'm curious, do any of those apply to what you're trying to do here at Brown, or what are some of the things that you would like to see to raise the level of Brown athletics across the board?
Yeah, so I have learned, Scott, that you certainly can't take solutions one place and plop them down the next, that they're so specific to that university and that campus environment. But by nature of having had these past experiences, I think I do come in better positioned to ask really good questions, to be able to sort through the analyses and to figure out how to do things, more quickly, more efficiently because of what I've been through. So I'm really challenging coaches and staff within athletics to help me understand, what is our unique value proposition? What do we leverage that's uniquely Brown that helps us move forward, and really finding what we are doing well that we can do even better, and using that to help lift up the programs that need some help right now. So I do have a pretty robust list already of things that we're going to jump into this summer. I've kind of termed it the 120-day plan to get us through the summer, what we need to do, and then what we're going to do going into the fall. So to preview, for instance, you and I have talked about the brand refresh, and we need to make sure that it's not just us talking internally about a bright future and how we're really committed to excellence. We want to demonstrate that externally, and even thinking about what marks we use, how we represent ourselves, and talk about what we're going to do is going to be really important. So we're looking at these areas and saying, where can we have some immediate successes? Where do we have to work into things over time? But we clearly have to leverage all that's special about Brown, like our phenomenal campus, open curriculum comes up all the time. It really is a place where you can come in and discover who you are, what you're passionate about, how you're going to go forward and have an impact. And I can say, after being at 7 universities, it's unlike anything else. There's such a sense of empowerment at Brown, and we have to better leverage that.
So in addition to overseeing our 34 varsity teams, you will also be overseeing the many club teams and recreation in general. What are your plans, for instance, for club sports, if you've given thought to that at this point?
Oh, absolutely. So I have always looked at athletics as a spectrum. It goes from varsity athletics on the one end to club programs, and we know we have club programs that are the best of the best as well, down to club programs that might be less of a commitment to. Then you're looking at intramurals, and we can't undersell that. I think competitive athletic experiences for as broad a cross section of the campus community as possible is really where we want to be. So our intramurals are structured sport and those classes that you take around recreation, and then pure drop-in. So that it's a spectrum, and I like to see a campus community that's as engaged as possible, because whether you are someone who just has sport as a big part of your life, or someone that may be newer to it or hasn't spent as much time in physical activity and recreation, I want everyone to find what part of their personal wellness equation is devoted to physical activity, and to find something that they love on that spectrum and get them as involved as possible. So there will be an emphasis on all of that, and recreation will definitely be a really thriving area of our division. But specific to your question about club sports, these are really high level, important competitive opportunities, and we want to support them as well as we can to their team goals, because again, within club, we will acknowledge that some might set as a goal competing for a national championship, and for some it might be a looser participation opportunity where it's very welcoming of people who have never even tried that particular sport before. So we want to really find out what's important to these different groups and then support them to the best of our ability.
Let's learn a little bit about your family. I understand your husband, Jason, is the golf coach, men's golf coach at Penn, and a little birdie told me he's also a terrific golfer. What are his plans?
Yeah, so Jason has absolutely been my rock, my life partner now for the better part of about 23 years. And I like to say he's the more talented Calhoun, but he has sacrificed mightily to allow me to continue to follow my career and take on these opportunities. He will stay back at Penn. He's committed to coaching at least one more year. And I think as all coaches in the Ivy League can appreciate, leaving after the last year we've had, where we only progressed to a little bit of competition, was just a tough way for him to accept leaving. So he's committed to one more year. We will be a family that goes back and forth and gets to learn Interstate 95 very well. My oldest daughter, Lexi, is headed to Penn in the fall as well. So we will still have some red and blue. We're hoping for a lot of friendly banter in the family, especially when the two institutions compete against one another.
All right. So you mentioned Lexi. Tell us about your four daughters, a little bit about them: Lexi, Maddie, Ella, and Kate.
Yeah. So Lexi, again, headed to Penn, interested in political science, at least going in, and will be a member of the women's basketball team at Penn. Great. And then Maddie, who is a current high school junior, we gave Maddie the option of what she wanted to do, because obviously going into the senior year of high school is super tough in all ways, but she evaluated options and got super excited about relocating with us. Where we have bought a house in Barrington, and she is going to be excited to play soccer and basketball at Barrington next year, and graduate from just a wonderful, wonderful public high school with phenomenal people. Ella is a current 7th grader. She is the only of my 4 daughters that takes after me and has a smaller stature and is a gymnast. My others got the height gene that I forgot. Ella, another really good student, loves doing gymnastics, and she just has a big personality. You will get to know her very quickly, because she will be at all of the events, and Ella just gets herself right in the middle of the action, and will talk to anyone that will talk with her.
Great.
And got the little one. Kate is 7. She is a first grader and into a little bit of everything. With the big age gap, of course, she just gets dragged along to everything with her sisters, and can entertain herself better than any kid I've ever met. Although certainly loves being around college sports. And I have always felt so blessed that my kids get to be mentored by all these amazing college student athletes. So that's the run of show, and they will be at games. They go willingly to anything I will take them to. They quickly learn who the student athletes are and tell me stats that I didn't even know. So it's really a package deal with the Calhouns, and I just look forward to getting them involved at Brown.
Well, they sound like wonderful girls, and we can't wait to welcome them to the Brown community. Last thing, Grace, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, with things really starting to open up now here in Rhode Island and throughout the country, I think, Ivy League athletic fans, and in particular Brown athletic fans who we're speaking to today, they'd love to know, what are your thoughts on Ivy League sports in the fall? Do you think we'll have something that resembles a normal fall athletically?
Absolutely. And I will say that it's not just my thoughts, but in speaking with President Paxson and her interactions with the Ivy League Council of Presidents, that there is high confidence that things are opening up and that we can safely go back to what looks to be fairly normal athletics activity. We are expecting to have full fall schedules, both conference games as well as non-conference. Now we'll have to see if there are any local or state regulations in terms of visitors to campus, fans and stands, and stuff like that. But we are expecting for full competition. And my hope is, and as President Paxson has said previously, she's expecting a fall 2021 that looks much, much more like fall 2019 than fall 2020. So we're hoping for full activity come September.
She is the new Vice President of Athletics and Recreation at Brown University, and she's back home at her alma mater. Grace Calhoun, class of 92, our guest on the Brown Bears podcast. Grace, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Ever true, and go Bears.